Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Robert Hawkins. I'm the Vice President of Business Development with the Orem Group. I have the pleasure of working with the marketing and education teams, which is how I met our presenter this evening. Michael and I met back in June when we hosted one of the LVI courses here in Calgary at the Heil-Meyer Center for Dental Excellence. And him being a marketing and a marketing guy, we had a lot to talk about. So without further ado, Michael, I know you got a jam-packed program this evening, so I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Robert. Yeah, it was funny. We were both presenting at LVI and both kind of found each other afterwards. I was like, hey, I liked your presentation. And he was like, I liked your presentation. So it's kind of funny how this all came together. But guys, thank you so much for allowing me to come into your computer screens for this evening. Give you just a brief introduction. So my name is Michael Antosy. I am the Director of Practice Growth Consulting here with MyAdvice. Give you our background in brief. We have been working with dental practices now for, gosh, going on our 25th year, actually. But really, our focus as an organization really has been about one main thing, which is really focusing a lot on the top of the lead funnel. So bringing patients to the door and getting your phone to ring, and really how you do that through your online strategy. We currently serve about 3,000 practices throughout the United States as well as into Canada. Being in this space, I've actually been consulting for about 15 years. In addition to, having met Robert at Orem and working with some of the doctors over at LVI, I've also just came back from the dental implant meeting in Atlanta last weekend. Prior to that, I was at the facial aesthetics meeting where a lot of dental practices are adding aesthetics into their practice. I'm even married to the world's most evil dental hygienist. So I feel like this is a space that I just bring a lot of experience in, both professionally as well as personally as well too. But regardless of where your practice is at, if your practice, and I'm imagining that for the majority of the attendees here, is that your practice has probably been established for some years, and you might be coming here because you're feeling a sense of frustration. Maybe you're demystified with the process of really how to build and align your marketing strategy, or you might be seeing your costs go out the door in terms of what you're investing into, but you're not seeing as much of that return come back in. If that's how you find yourself, this is going to be a fantastic presentation for you, because what we're going to do is really talk about how to maximize the return on your investment with your marketing. So that way you're not in a position of overspending to see less back. Consequently, if you're also in a position where maybe your practice is just getting started and you really need to understand what a strategy looks like, I'm about to introduce a playbook here for you tonight, which is what we call our pyramid of success. And this is really designed to really set you up for success. And so that way, again, you're not necessarily overspending to see less back as well here too. I want you guys, as we proceed with this conversation as well too, not just to look at your marketing through the lens of like, what is it doing for me now and here? Because yes, while there is that component to helping to drive immediate leads and revenue, the real valuation of your marketing is really, what is it doing to produce more predictable pipeline? What are the investment dollars that you're making into your business today that are going to be paying the dividends 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, and really build a lot of that valuation. As dentistry has become so much more competitive, if you're not thinking about how you're aligning your marketing for a potential transaction or sale of your practice, even if you do not want that, you need to be acting as if that's going to happen. And tonight, what we're going to do is really uncover and give you a playbook and a strategy as to how you can really capitalize. So you might be asking yourself another question: why the heck is he starting out this conversation with a picture of a baby? So this is my baby. His name is York. This is him about a year ago. He's about to turn 2. And let me just pose a question here to you. Pretend being in a room with this little baby, and hopefully you can agree that at least this is a very adorable child. Those big bright eyes and that big head, like beautiful smile. And if you were in a room with him, you would probably want to go over to him and maybe pick him up and kind of ooh and ah on him. But what if I said to you, no, you can't do that. You can't touch my son. Don't talk to him. Pretend that he doesn't even exist. And by the way, I'm going to do the same thing. Like, I'm not even going to look at him. I'm not even going to feed him. I'm not going to love on him. Hopefully you would think about, like, that's a crazy proposition. Why on earth would you ever ignore something that is this important? But it's interesting because that's how I see a lot of practice owners treat their growth within their practice. They're not seeing it as a child that is something that is an entity that needs to be constantly matured and tended to. Not necessarily that it needs a lot of attention, but it needs consistent attention. And that's where I would say the majority of failure points are with your marketing, is that you are not being consistent enough in terms of how you're actually nurturing your strategy. And again, that results into frustration points. Maybe you're not seeing as many patients come back into your practice. And to be honest with you, there's a variety of different ways or methods that are actually holding you back from nurturing your strategy in a proper way. Having been in this space for a long time, what we do bring to this conversation is a lot of data insight, not only just in terms of how you drive good ROI, but also understanding, what is the state of play in the market. So we actually took this survey. We had profiled over 1,000 different dental practice owners about 2 years ago. And what we wanted to understand was just very simply one simple question: are you planning on investing more into marketing? Now, practice owners, I will tell you, there are always reasons that you are going to tell yourself as to why you should not invest into your growth. And think about the last 4 years of what's been happening just in the collective lexicon. We're coming on the back end of a pandemic ending. We have 2 different wars that have started, both in Ukraine and then in Israel. We're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with wildfires. We're going through election cycles. There's always these macroeconomic factors that are reinforcing this messaging that you shouldn't really take a stance or a position in terms of your actual growth. So with the practice owners that we had surveyed, half of them said, no, I'm not investing more into marketing. And they cited staffing issues. They think of it as something as being much more of a luxury as opposed to a necessity. And folks, make no mistake about it. If you are swiping a credit card at your practice, you are a cash-based practice, you need to have marketing. That is the lifeblood of how revenue starts to create. Now, marketing can be structured in different ways, but again, if you're not investing into that, you're starving the child, okay? 22% of our respondents said, I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm not retracting resources like the 49% group is doing, but I'm sure as heck not putting more into it. I'm kind of like being like a deer in the headlights. I don't know how to meet this moment. 29%, almost a third of our respondents, they're taking the Warren Buffett mindset where you buy low and sell high, understanding that either half of our competition or a quarter of our competition is either retracting or they just don't know what to do. We're here to capitalize. And folks, it's the ones that are capitalizing now and making the right moves now that are setting your business up for success 12 months from now. Okay. That's why we say the time to really invest into your strategies really cannot be better, because most people do not know how to meet this moment. Now, one of the things that whenever I meet with practice owners and I ask them, how's the business state of your practice doing? The answers always sound the same. They can say, hey, Michael, last month was my best month, or last quarter was my best quarter. And really what's behind those answers is that those practice owners look at their patients very transactionally. They think about how many people came in, what was the gross revenue among that cohort, and then what did I invest into my marketing to get that revenue? And that's oftentimes how you understand that relationship. But in all honesty, it's a very shallow perspective if that's how you feel your marketing is. Because again, while it's meant to produce those transactions, yes, the true value that it has for your practice is what I mentioned earlier. What is it doing to build more future predictive revenue pipeline? In other words, what we call driving patient lifetime value. What is one patient worth to your practice over many, many years? And the average lifetime value that one dental patient will have for your practice is generally between $25,000 and $35,000, and that's in USD. So think about this and think about like how many patients came into your door this week that were new patients. Did you actually say to yourself, well, gosh, maybe I have $1,000 that I'm budgeting for my marketing, but there's over $100,000 of future valuation that just walked into my door. Practice owners just don't see the world that way. So when you really start to understand that, but then the question is that, okay, how do I get more of that? And that's what we call our pyramid of success. Our over 25 years in working with dental practices is really a tried and true formula that we've come to understand is the right way of aligning your marketing strategy. The idea about what I'm about to introduce though to you is that all of these steps matter and they have to be executed in the right order, okay? So on a foundational level, it all starts with having an amazing website. And we're going to talk about what makes an amazing website in just a quick moment. But you need to have a website because it's literally the hub that governs any type of visibility spoke that you might do. If you're investing into Google or paid ads or billboards or magazines, newspapers, all that traffic leads back to your website. Now, once you have a great website, a lot of marketing companies will tell you that you need to start to do SEO or buy a bunch of ads. And what I'm here to tell you today is that if anyone ever tells you to do those things first, you need to run from that person because you need to question their financial incentives. Don't worry, don't mistake. I'm not poo-pooing SEO or paid ads. They actually can be quite effective. But for them to work, it's a consistent effort that's expensive to do. And more importantly, it requires a strong foundation to really drive better results. So the foundation starts, number one, is the first thing is aligning what we call your local listings and making sure that how your business data is showing up online is consistent as well as accurate. If that sounded like a foreign language to you, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about what that means in a quick moment. Once you have your listings dialed in, it's then all about what you're doing to drive reviews, particularly to Google. There's a lot of review sites which exist. Google is the one platform that doesn't abide by any type of nefarious business practices. It will show the good, the bad, the ugly. And most importantly, it's the first thing that people will see. It's what really helps to drive a lot of your visibility. Next is really about having great social media and how often new social media content is being curated, both between Facebook as well as Instagram. Now, what you're seeing here is what we would call a complete and full internet presence. And at minimum, this is what any dental practice needs to make sure that they're well optimized by is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, when you want to grow quicker and faster and more acceleratedly, and maybe extend your marketing beyond the constant referrals that you're getting or the word of mouth traffic and start to balance out more of your lead sourcing with patients that don't know of you, that's when you then start to layer in SEO. We actually more specifically define this as content strategies. And then the last part is paid ads. But the idea about these things is that these upper levels, for them to be effective, they require that you have a good foundation set first. So let's dive into all of these aspects and let's talk about your website first. So the website, again, it's the nucleus. It's the hub that governs any type of visibility spoke. But ask yourself, why do you have a website for your practice? And I know this is not an interactive conversation, but maybe think about that rhetorically. Whenever I ask that question to practice owners, they say to me, well, like you have to have a website because you just have to have it. Like if you don't have it, it makes you seem like you're out of touch. Others will say, it's for information. I want my patients to become more informed. How about to make money? Because all of that leads back to how is a website generating leads for you? Now, a good website is a balance of having a strong sense of first impression as well as good conversions. And let me tell you guys a little bit of a story here. So a few years ago, I was giving this presentation and this cosmetic dentist came up to me afterwards. I think his practice was based in Seattle. And he said to me that, look, I've got a problem at my practice. And I said, all right, well, what's happening? Tell me. And he goes, listen, I'm just going to tell you before I begin that I'm the best at doing cosmetic dentistry in Seattle. No one does veneers better than what I do. I mean, my margins are so tight, you can barely feel them. And I've been doing this now for, gosh, almost 25 years. And I'm just telling you, I'm the best at doing what I do. And I said, okay, you said you had a problem. What's your problem? So he goes on to tell me that, hey, listen, about a year ago, this practice had just opened up a few blocks away from him. Younger group, the doctors were just out of dental school, but he had noticed that ever since that time, his schedules for cosmetic dentistry were lower. It was kind of freaking him out because as that lead source is being siphoned off, he relies on a lot of those patients that are coming in to sell them into additional services as well too, in terms of, perhaps implants or more holistic dentistry, or whatever that might be. And so it was really having a trickle down effect in terms of how he was driving revenue. And he kept on saying, well, this practice, they don't have as much experience as what I do. I've been doing this now for over 20 years. And I said, okay, cool. I appreciate that context. Let's take a look at your website and let's see what we can find. So I opened up his website and immediately I knew exactly what his problem was. And he goes, well, how can you tell me what my problem is? You just spent 2 seconds looking at my website. And I said, yeah, that's all the time that I needed. Well, what's wrong? What's wrong with my website? And I said to him, listen, you just got done telling me your great experience speaks for itself, that you've been doing veneers for such a long time, that you're the best at doing that, and that everyone should always come to you. He goes, yes, absolutely. I said, doctor, I'm sorry to tell this to you, but your website makes you look very, very mediocre. And guys, I got to tell you something. This website was awful. I mean, it was like a website that was built from like the mid 90s. It had one of those like website tickers, counters, if you remember those from like the Netscape days, where it would say, hey, you were the 10,000th visitor to the website. And, when I looked at his competitor site, the newer practice with less experience, gosh, it was bright, it was vibrant, it had a great vibe. It made it look as if they actually cared about how they were coming across. And the logic that was connecting the patient's brain was, if this practice obviously cares about how they're coming across to me, then they must take care of me. And that's oftentimes the complacent trap that many, especially established practices, find themselves in. Is they rest on their laurels about how good my work is, and that should speak for itself. Living room doesn't support that. Sorry, Alexa. My Alexa heard me here. So guys, we're going to do a little bit of a test here. I'm going to show you 6 different websites. They're going to be numbered 1, 2, 3 across the top and 4, 5, 6 on the bottom. And patients make decisions about coming to your practice within 2.9 seconds. They've actually drilled down on the data on that. And within that time, they're making a decision, am I going to stay or am I going to go? And by the way, if they leave your website, guess what? There goes your revenue. They're not coming in. However, if they stay, it's much more likely you're going to be converting that patient. And then as you convert that patient, they're sending all their friends to you as well too. That's how we, again, start to really align and ignite that word of mouth. So based on what you see, first impressions, tell me, which is the practice that you're calling based off of what you see? Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, I gave you a little bit more than 2.9 seconds. Now, this is not a live back and forth webinar here, but I want you to think about this again. Taking a second look at these, which would be the practice that you would call? And hopefully you're coming to the conclusion of number 5. Now, if you guessed 5, you've guessed right. Number 1, why would we not call this practice? And by the way, just so you guys know, all of these are number 1 ranking websites in their local markets. Top of Google searches. Number 1, by God, is this a discount practice? It's like $100 off, free gift card, $100 new patient. It's like, do you really want to be selling your practice as a discount practice? Probably not. That helps to precipitate and bring that type of a quality patient into your door. Number 2, I did this Google search for dental implants. Look at the photo. Are kids getting dental implants? Probably not. Number 3, white background, white text, white mountains. It's a lot of white. You need things to pop more on your site visually. Our brains are wired to be visual. Number 4, as I look at number 4 here, I see that frosting over the photo. I think about glamour shots going through the mall. You never want people to think about something else when they look at your website, especially if it might have been like an older age experience. This tells me if that glamour shot was from back in the 80s. Number 3, the practice is called Island Dental Center of Summerlin. Summerlin is a community town right outside of Las Vegas. Does anybody know of any islands in Las Vegas? Probably not. But number 5, why do we pick 5? It's because it's the most visual. It's the most interesting. Again, as I said earlier, our brains are wired to be visual. There's just an essence about this that makes it look as if they really care about how they're coming across. Now, as beautiful as a website needs to be, if it ain't making your phone ring, it ain't doing the job for you in the way that it should. So think about your website. Can you easily find your phone number on your website, or do patients have to scroll all over the website just to try to find a basic piece of information? That phone number to your practice, that main call to action, should never, ever, ever disappear from the eye line of a patient. When we consolidate a website down onto a smartphone as well too, let me go out of my screen here. But when we say consolidate a website down onto a smartphone, is it completely mobile responsive? By the way, folks, if anyone has a Wix website, you need to get off of that platform right away, because it is not what we would refer to as being a mobile responsive platform. It might be mobile optimized, but it's not responsive. And so in other words, is the whole website adapting to the screen size, or is the text starting to get cut off? You always want to make sure that it's always completely adaptive to any screen size that it's being launched on. If your practice is US based, your website also requires ADA compliancy. Is there a standard where we're on a website and I can say darken the contrast if I needed to, or can I increase the text size if I needed to do that? Just how you might have malpractice insurance for your website, or how you might say click on your seatbelt when you get into a car. This helps to keep you safe. I'm not trying to scare anybody when I say this, but if you do not have an ADA standard on your website, you're absolutely exposing your business to a potential lawsuit. So we always tell practice owners, just set yourself up for success now. Don't wait on it. Don't wait for a problem to get generated. Solve the problem now. Now, in today's age, what I will tell you is that the website is just a commodity. This is not the thing you spend a lot of money in terms of developing. What you want to be thinking about is, how am I going to give my practice much more exposure? So your exposure starts with what we call local search. And I want you to think about the layers of your practice's visibility based around a pyramid. The foundation of that pyramid is local search. On top of that then is content search. And then finally beyond that is paid search. And we're going to kind of go into details to what all those things mean. Local search basically means your local optimization. How well is your practice being listed among what we call local directories? So think about this, and guys, let's just set kind of a given here. If I were to move to your town or your community, if I were seeking dental implants or holistic dentistry or TMJ or all on four or veneers, whatever that thing might be, if I know that that's what I want, but I just don't know who offers it, hopefully we can make the agreement that I start my journey by going to Google. So Google's role in your growth is all about what it does to drive new acquisition revenue into your practice. Because again, I'm seeking services. I don't know that you exist. I'm trying to find you. Now, within the Google infrastructure, half of all Google searches are localized in some way. So local search sounds something to the effect of dental implants, Philadelphia, or porcelain veneers near me. Those are two examples of what we call locally based searches. So the question is, what are the qualities that Google is looking at within a practice to say, yeah, you know what, patient, this is a trusted resource to go to? Does it start by looking at your website? The answer to that is no. It will eventually, but not right away. And this is coming directly from Google itself. This is not hyperbolic. It's not speculative. How Google determines local ranking boils down to three main factors, which is what we call relevance, distance, and prominence. So relevance and distance, this has everything to do with what we call local listings. So local listings are these profiles that exist online. There's actually 60 of them, as well as 15 applications. And when these local queries are being done, what Google basically wants to do is it wants to trust and validate and verify who your practice is, where you might be located, what's your proper phone number, what's your proper address, and it wants to see the consistency of all of that data among every single one of these profiles. I'm not suggesting to you that, say, hey, a patient is going to go to an easy local or a city squares to try to find a dental office. That's what why they go to Google for. But Google does rely on this information. So ultimately, when you have misinformation that's out there, it really dilutes the trust that Google sees in your practice, which lessens your visibility, lead flow, and therefore rankings. This is a doctor I recently had met here, and this particular doctor had taken over the practice from the previous provider about 6 years ago. And what we're finding here is that there's a lot of this old data from the previous practice owner that is still showing up. You yourself might have experienced that before, or if you've moved an office location, or if you added a new location, or maybe you have a tracking phone number. All this stuff is really stuff that can really muck up and validate or infect this bad information into these local profiles, which again dilutes a lot of your localized visibility. So trying to correct this is not something that you can actually do on your own. You need a process or a tool that will help to automate that for you. One of the most foundational tools that we actually implement into our strategies is a tool that we have, which is called local SEO. And what local SEO is, it's a software application that syncs into a Google business profile. And it basically does two things, where if there is any old information or bad data, that will be suppressed through this API. But the second thing that it does is it pushes all the clean and the accurate listing information about your practice to all these profiles and directories, and it maintains that information and it keeps it fixed. What I'm sharing with you is a 60-day impact case study that we had measured looking at over 200 of our dental practices that we actively do this for. And by the way, before I share with you these ROI results, what I'll also add is that a few years ago, we had done through some proprietary technology that we had analyzed over 3,000 dental practices in North America. And looking at citations specifically, listings specifically, what we had found is 90% of the practices that we had seen have some form of misinformation, of citation inaccuracy. So if you want to ask yourself a question, hey, what's a marketing strategy that I can invest into that I know 90% of my competition is not doing? It's this right here. Again, that should tell you that the majority of your competition has an unfortified foundation. Getting back to these results, though, when you start to align listings, what an average practice sees in terms of ROI is within 2 months, a 23% bump of more views of their practice within Google. Direction requests to your location from platforms like Google Maps increase by 22%. Website traffic increases by 18%. Inbound phone call volume increases by 11%. All of these are calls to actions which equate to revenue on the back end. So again, when you want to start to grow your patient base, when you want to drive more of that future valuation, this is where your work is going to begin. Now, what this aligns back into, if I go back a few slides here, is that, what is the third thing that Google looks for? We talked about relevance and distance being related to your local listings. Prominence has everything to do with your Google reviews and how often new reviews are actually being curated and added to your profile. Every practice that I talk to tells me how they're word of mouth driven, word of mouth driven, word of mouth driven. And as you should be. If you were not word of mouth driven, that means you're doing really poor work at your practice. That's a problem that you have that marketing cannot fix. So I'm happy to hear that. But what you also practice owners need to understand is that even patients that are being referred into you, that's just a referral. As a matter of fact here, if I share with you, these are all the business cards that I've received from referrals. So you're not the only practice that a patient is actually looking when they decide to actually come to you. There's other factors at play. And data will tell us that patients will trust online reviews much, much more than even a personalized recommendation. So if your practice is word of mouth driven, ask yourself, well, how are we concentrating on our Google review strategy then? Because that is a tool, it's a marketing metric that helps to influence that conversion of that referral. I'll give you guys a story as to why this is important. So we also do a little bit of work within aesthetics medicine as well too. And there's a really powerful case study in terms of the power of reviews. Whether you work in aesthetics or whether you work in dentistry, this still applies. So I used to live in Los Angeles, and there's a doctor by the name of Dr. Paul Nassif. And if you're a fan of the TV show Botched, you might recognize Dr. Nassif, celebrity plastic surgeon. He's all over TV. He's got a very powerful practice. He's in Beverly Hills. And if you take a look at this profile here, this is the first impression that you have of Paul Nassif when you Google him. And you're probably maybe thinking to yourself that, hey, for a guy that's this well known, why does he only have 62 Google reviews? And if you're thinking about that, you're not incorrect in that logic. And as we click on this here, and by the way, patients, they always want to sort to the newest reviews because that's what matters the most. We want to understand what is the most recent experience that patients are having in a practice. You can see that he had a review from about 2 months ago, but then prior to that point, there's a 9-month gap that was in here. And then, you can see that there's just not a ton of consistency with how these reviews are being generated. Side tangent, but important metric. Google review consistency is one of the most important parts of lowering your cost of acquisition of that lead. Think about this, is how many patients are coming in through your doors in a given week. That includes not just the cases that you're doing, but also to your hygiene cases, your hygiene patients that are coming in. Is your practice at least hitting a 5 to 10% return rate of new Google reviews compared to how many patients that you're seeing in that given week? So if you're saying say 50 patients a week, that really should tell you that you should be generating anywhere from say 2 to 5 new reviews per week. That's not outside the realm of possibility. getting back to our example here though with Dr. Nassif, passive review strategy, but all right, well, let's take a look at his website. And boy, we click on this and it's a beautiful website. He probably spent a lot of money in terms of creating it. We did not build this, by the way, but I do want to point out some things that are important, such as, making sure that phone number always sticks on the eye line of a patient, ADA compliancy, having that standard being met. So again, this is a site that was still built the right way. So your logic would tell you that, hey, a good looking website like this will forgive a passive review strategy. So let's just put a pin in this for the time being. We're going to call Dr. Nassif Goliath in this example. I now want to talk to you about his competitor, David. David is Dr. Ermin Desai. He is also a Beverly Hills. Alexa, stop. I don't know why Alexa's just on one here tonight. He is also a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon, but this gentleman flies well under the radar. No one really knows his name or who he is, whatever that might be. But if you take a notice here for the unknown, relatively unknown provider and the known provider, is that the unknown is working much harder with his Google review strategy. He's got 861 Google reviews compared to the measly 62 here. Now, when we click on this, clearly you're going to be curious. You want to understand, like, well, all right, well, what are people saying? What is this all about here? And I want you to pay attention to the consistency. This is from 4 days ago, 5 days ago, a week ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, 2 months ago, 2 months ago, 2 months ago. I mean, he had flooded this review profile within the last 2 months, and it was really, 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 really powerful. And by the way, when you talk about, hey, like my practice is very referral driven, what are people saying? I found Dr. Desai from a friend. You're going to see this a lot. My friend referred me to Dr. Desai. Hence, again, why we say that if your practice is very reliant on referrals, you want to be very consistent with your Google review strategy. It's got an awesome review strategy. Now let's take a look at his website. Again, just as a quick recap here, Paul Nassif, passive review strategy, but boy, he's got a really great looking website. Ermin Desai really hitting it hard on the reviews. Awesome review strategy. Let's take a look at his website. Oh my goodness gracious. Guys, this is his website. Hopefully we can make an agreement here that this is not a very good website. The formatting is off. I used to live in California. I will tell you, being an Angelino for 16 years, the visuals of Beverly Hills and Hollywood are not visuals as to why we would want to go to this practice. And this is the face of his website. And by the way, he is also a Harvard-educated, double board certified, double fellowship trained plastic surgeon. So he's not a dummy. So don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that you have as poor of a website like this. This is not a smart business decision for the longevity of the practice, for your lead maturation, for your data study. However, it is telling in terms of what patients are gravitating towards. And I will tell you, when we look at the financials aspect of things, an entity that's this well known probably would not surprise me if he's spending well over 5 figures per month on his marketing. Dr. Desai probably has a very inexpensive review tool, and he still has a thriving practice, but doing it much more efficiently. A challenge that a lot of my practice owners say to me, though, is they say to me, Michael, I have so many happy people. I ask them to leave me reviews. They say that they're going to do it, but they just don't do it. And look, it's not to say that they won't do it, but it is to say that it's your job to make that process as easy as possible for the patient to do it. It's no different as to why you always want to make sure that that phone number always sticks on the eye line of the patient, because you're making their life easier to inquire. This is what we call our success center. And actually, this is, pardon me guys, let me just take a quick drink here. This is actually your potential success center. This is where we go to quantify data and KPIs for everything that we're doing for our practices. And we're fully transparent, where you have 24/7, 365 access to this as well. So if you wanted to understand how many leads my website is generating, or how many I've attempted to reach out to, or how many have been converted, we quantify that all directly here through our dashboard. If you want to get an understanding as to your local listings, hey, how is the alignment of my listings helping to drive more inbound phone call volume, or website traffic, or direction requests? Or understanding, hey, how is my search presence on Google versus Google Maps increasing or decreasing over a given time period. All of this very much matters. As a matter of fact, we also understand that with our clients, understanding this data is great, or seeing this data is great, but applying the meaning behind this data is probably not something you're taking enough time to do, which is why we actually proactively meet with our practices to review this data, help to give it a heart and intelligence behind that, so that way you can understand how these trends are actually affecting lead generation as well as revenue creation. Getting more reviews, it's easy to do if you had a good process in place, which is what Review Power helps to do. This is a text message based application that allows you or your admin, or frankly anybody at your practice front desk, an ability of sending out a mass text message to as many of your patients all at the same time. Now, I do recognize in dentistry that oftentimes there are platforms like Revenue Well or Lighthouse or Weave. A lot of you probably have technology that has some type of text capability that's already built in. If you do, great, no big deal. For those of you that don't have that though, you want to have a text process in place that will help you to do that. And that's precisely what this tool helps to do. Can you email out review requests? You certainly can, but when you text, you're converting that review 80% more of the time, much more than any other modality. So you always want to be in a text-based discipline. You click on this link here, we click on next. And then from here are these pre-scripted templates that basically all you have to do is select from one of these templates. You can modify them precisely how you want them to read. So I'm going to say family dental practice. I'm going to call myself here Dr. Antosy. You can see that this not only just integrates with Google, but also with Facebook as well too. You have a lot of options in terms of where you can drive reviews to, but I will tell you is that the two that drive the most revenue as well as digital equity are Facebook as well as Google. Facebook is going to be much more effective from the patient retention side of things. However, Google is going to be much better at the patient acquisition, the lead generation aspect of things. Both work on revenue from different ways, but both are really, really important. Now from here, you might export a CSV file from your Dentrix or your EagleSoft software and just bam, drop that into here. Or alternatively, what you can do is just simply type in the patient's name, you put their cell phone number in, and bam, you send them those requests and your job is basically done. On the receiving end, the patient receives a text message that comes in from an 801 phone number. We actually do set this up for a local number, just FYI. So here's my text that just came in. Here you can see it's, "Hi, Michael. We appreciate your help in leaving a review for Family Dental Practice online. Just click the following link to get started. Thanks in advance." We click on that link. Patient goes to a landing page. Here's where we put your logo and your branding. These are your direct integrations with Google and Facebook. All I have to do is click on that integration. If I'm signed in, I'm literally taken immediately here to where I leave you that review. It makes it very, very easy and very, very simplistic for the patient side of things. But why do we do this? Again, it's a very inexpensive way of driving down your patient acquisition cost and maximizing the amount of value that they see in your practice, and so that way they're spending more money. This is actually a case study that we had profiled for one of my clients, Dr. Saltz. And what we wanted to just simply understand is the metric of review consistency. What did that add in terms of visibility and lead flow over a 12-month period? By using this tool, his review volume shot up by 1,700%. That drove 40% increase of unique users to his website. Unique means new people that did not know that he existed are now finding him after a 12-month period. Huge revenue opportunity. That resulted into a 22% increase in terms of his search visibility, 81% increase in terms of his Google Maps visibility. That all led to a 38% increase with more leads over a 12-month period. So again, when you want to grow well, this is also a very, very vital component to your actual strategy. The next comes social media. By the way, folks, just so you guys know, this is a QR code here. You're going to see this now a few additional times. But if you're watching this and you're like, "Gosh, I would love to just ask Michael a question," or maybe I'm feeling like I really need to take some things up to the next level, take out your phone, scan this QR code. This links directly into my calendar. Don't wait to do this, because I see a lot of doctors do this, or admins do this, where they just scan it and then it sits in your browser for weeks and weeks on end. Scan the code, book a meeting with me, book a consultation. Happy to kind of answer any questions that you guys might have. Social media, let's talk a little bit more about this. Why focus here? Because social media is a very important aspect in terms of the acquisition component of your patients. It might not be the direct place that people go to try to find a dentist or a dental practice, but maybe what they do is they find your reviews, they look at your website. Boy, this looks great. Let's take a look at their social media. This really does have an impact, though, in terms of patient retention and increasing a patient's lifetime value. And if we know that, hey, the costs of acquisition are about 5 to 9 times higher than it is to retain a patient, boy, great social media presence really helps with keeping that revenue coming back into your practice. The number one mistake that I see dental practices make with their social media is they treat it as a sales billboard. And patients do not go online to Instagram or Facebook to be sold. They go to Instagram, to Facebook to become engaged, and it's the engagement that does the selling. Now, this slide I'm about to share with you guys is a few years old, but it really still stands the test of time. Now, let's think about insurance, specifically progressive car insurance. Insurance is boring, right? It's a necessary, we have to have it for home, auto, whatever that might be, but it's kind of a boring subject. You pay it once a year or once every 2 years, whatever that might be. So Progressive Car Insurance, their Facebook page has 344,000 likes at the time that we took this screenshot. Okay. Now, think about who is the face of Progressive. It's Flo. And think about what Flo represents. Who is Flo as a person? If you were to describe her, who is she? Well, she's cute. She's dorky. She's kind of nerdy. But most importantly, Flo is the person that if you ever gotten into an accident, you want somebody like Flo on your side to make sure that you're being taken care of. Flo's Facebook page, 5.4 million likes to the 344,000. This is the same exact company, but where is the engagement? It's much different with Flo. This is why we say to you is that patients don't go on social media to become sold. They go on social media to become engaged. Now, what I will tell you with social media, when you want to have a successful social media presence, it really boils down to two main things. Number one is how engaging is your content? Is it being liked? Is it being followed? Is it being shared, saved, commented on, etc., etc.? But then secondly, too, how consistent are you with how you are producing content? Going back to my slide that I mentioned earlier, you need to be consistent with how you are loving on your child for it to grow. You need to be consistent with how you are loving on your marketing strategy if you want it to also grow as well, too. Now, the consistency part is where a lot of my practices struggle with, at least with their social media. And the reality is that if you're not posting on your Facebook or Instagram accounts at minimum every other day, you're just simply not showing these profiles that you are a user of it. So how we can help you in that front is integrating another tool that we have, which is called Social Power. And with Social Power, what we do is we curate dental content based around the services that you select at your practice. So maybe you want to see some content on crown or filling or bridge or dental implants. Maybe you want to see some content on veneers or preventative dentistry or whatever that might be. You're really not limited in terms of the post types that you can choose from. But based around that, that's precisely what we then put into your feed. We post 4 days a week on Facebook, 3 days a week on Instagram. Our content is pre-published to go out 2 months early, so that way practices can actually make the edits to the content before it actually goes out. And let's take a look at this post here. It looks to be like maybe an associate talking to a patient here. Let's create this post and have this post go out tomorrow, so that way you guys can see this on November the 20th. And pay attention to the photo. Again, it's kind of the associate talking to the woman in white hair here. And when I click on publishing, this is now where we put all of your content. Again, 4 posts a week on Facebook, 3 a week on Instagram, published to go out 2 months early. So here's the post. And here you can see the text. This is the image. It's already been pre-scheduled to go out at a certain time. Maybe what you might want to do though is give this a little bit more of your own flavor and spin. Maybe you put in here, hey, call us today for your consultation. You can add as much or as little text to this as you would like to. If you didn't like this image for whatever reason, that's fine too. I personally liked Betty, but if you didn't like Betty, that's fine. You can X that image out. You could pull your own image in if you wanted to do that. You could change the time at which this post is going to go out as well too. If you saw a post and you're just like, this doesn't really resonate with me, hey, no big deal. You don't have to use it. Just delete it. No harm, no foul. The other really cool thing about this tool, though, is that you could actually use this tool to pre-schedule some of your own content in addition to what we also provide for you as well, too. I also neglected to say, sometimes if you've had like a great review online, we'll create a little review graphic. We'll put your logo on there as well, too. That's a really cool feature. But let's say, hey, I shot this really cool case, or I have this really cool video or this cool post. I want to publish this to say go out right before the holidays. So if I go right over here to say Sunday, December 22nd, you can see it's a blank day. I'm going to click on new post. And that's not just a post. It could be a reel. It could be a story, whatever that might be. I'll type in a little bit of my text here. And let's add an image over. I can slide something over from my desktop computer. Or alternatively, what I can also do too is I can preload some images in here so that way it's here for me the next time I might want to use it. This is the world's most evil dental hygienist as well as our little boy. And maybe I want this to say go out at 9 a.m. So when I hit schedule on that date and time, that's where you then can find this original post in addition to everything else that we create for you. So again, it makes it really, really easy and very, very simplistic. So what we have just covered here so far, again, is what constitutes a complete and full internet presence. Again, great website that's well converting, good content on it, great, beautiful design. Really dialing in a lot of our near-me based optimization with local listings, review building, and then social. The next layer in terms of your visibility is your content visibility. This is what traditionally practice owners know of to be SEO. We really more precisely define this as content strategies. So what is the information that's living on your website, and how is it really adding value to people that go onto your website? Now, there's a big difference between when somebody searches dental implants near me versus when somebody searches, hey, Google, what is the difference between all on 4 versus all on X? That is what we call a content-based search. And that's where the information that lives on your website really is important. Now, if you've been engaged with SEO strategies, or if you've heard about SEO in the past, you've heard this common association that content is king. And what Google wants to do is it wants to basically show the websites with the most unique content. Remember that word unique. If you're thinking about that in terms of your understanding with content strategies, you're operating from an old school mindset. So let me tell you what has changed in our lexicon. So Google, it makes a lot of changes on a daily basis. On average, Google makes about 9 changes to its algorithm per day. But every so often, there's a big update to the algorithm. And when these updates happen, they often will title them. There was the Hummingbird update, the Panda update. Most recently, we saw the Medic update back in 2018. I want to stress, though, that these updates, they're not frequent. They happen every so often. 2 years ago, and it started 2 years ago, we have seen 3 core updates within the last 24 months on Google's platform. And this amount of shifting and big shift and changes within the algorithm is unprecedented. This has never happened before. What happened 2 years ago, and what continues to saturate and permeate into our daily lives, is artificial intelligence and AI. Now, going back to that word unique content, what I can now do with AI is I can tell a ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, here's a writing sample of mine. I want you to study it. And based around this writing sample, what I now want you to do is I want you to write a page of content for my website. Subject is about veneers, and it should be written in a way that I would speak. And ChatGPT can do that. Now, that content, is it unique? Yes, it is. It's never existed before. But the shift is the content helpful? Is it actually adding value to the searcher? Can I go onto a website and learn about something that I really cannot find anywhere else? And that's what the biggest update that Google has been making, which is what we call the helpful content update. I want you to stop thinking about your SEO in terms of keywords or keyword optimization. If you're thinking about keywords, you're operating from an old school mindset, because the content on your website needs to reflect how people actually speak. And again, is it adding value to the searcher itself? This is one of my clients, Dr. Rick Winter. And when we go on this website, and I just want you to study this page on dental implants here. This is what I would consider to be a very strong website in terms of the content, because the content, it's not about keywords. It's not saying about, well, Dr. Winter is the best at doing dental implants. Did you know that dental implants have been done for XYZ amount of years, or whatever that might be? No, he's actually answering a lot of the common questions that his patients are always asking him onto his pages of his website. So what are dental implants? What are the three parts of a dental implant? As you investigate his website, he's got multiple pages for implants. There's a page for one-day implants, mini implants, whatever that might be. The same for Priest Dental here as well too. If I go to their page here on dental implants, you're going to see a content format where it's questions, answers, questions, answers. You want to be providing content and information on your website that matches what are the queries that your patients are always asking you. And Dr. Winter, his practice is based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Well, if I do a Google search here for dental implants, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, not only do you see his website here at the top, he also comes down here within the organic searches as well. And by the way, this is Google's way of telling you, this is how people search about dental implants on our platform. How much do dental implants cost in Milwaukee? This is even more locally based searches as well too. So again, think about the common questions that your patients are always asking you about specific services or procedures at your practice. Are you answering those questions on your website? Are you, say, polling your staff and saying, hey, what are the things that our patients are always asking you? Are we answering that on our website? Now, a big thing about the shift with the helpful content update is another aspect of the algorithm, which is how it's actually recognizing pages on your site. This is also a really big one. Now, a few years ago, when we were doing SEO, we would ask, hey, what are the services that you want to be promoting at your practice? If it's cosmetic dentistry or holistic dentistry, biologic dentistry, whatever that might be. Strategy would tell us is that, hey, we would really beef up content around those things because that's what Google wants to read on that particular page. But you might have some other pages on your website, for example, x-rays or hygiene or whatever that might be. Maybe you're not necessarily trying to convert as many of those patients, or you don't care about that visibility because they're going to be coming in regardless, but you really want to be developing content around the things that are going to make you money. And it used to be that Google would say, well, we don't really care that this website has an inferior page about x-rays or dental cleanings because it's got really great content on this main thing here. That's now no longer the case. If you have content that is inferior in some aspects of your website, that can actually kill the optimization for the main things that you want to be promoting. So are you having these engaged conversations with your SEO team? To really succeed in the content strategy side of things is that you want to have an engaged relationship. Are you being told what to do, or do you feel like you're in a relationship with your marketing where it's more passive, where you have to sift information out of your marketing team? You should be focused on practicing great dentistry. It's our job to also tell you then what to do in terms of how you need to be shifting your strategy. So again, if you're in a passive relationship with your team, it's a good opportunity to maybe reevaluate that and ask yourself, do you want to continue with that status quo, knowing that all these changes are really happening at a very rapid fire pace in the Google sphere? Proper content structuring as well too. Do you have a lot of questions and answers? Do you have dedicated pages for all the services that you offer at your practice? All this is very, very important. Last part that we're going to talk about here is then paid search, okay? Paid search is Google AdWords. It's you getting immediate and guaranteed visibility for specific terms of services that you really want to be promoting at your practice. Now, there's this misnomer that people will bypass ads because they don't trust an ad. And that could not be further from the truth. Google makes over 70% of its revenue based off of its Google AdWords. So that's where people are clicking. Now, what I've seen historically are really two main failure points with ad campaigns. Number one is that dental practices are not specific enough in terms of the patient type that they want to be bringing in. AdWords are great when you want to be bringing in a particular patient for a particular service. Going back here to my colleague, Dr. Rick Winter, you can see that when I do a Google search here for dental implants Milwaukee, his ad's coming up right up here at the top. And by the way, his SEO is also appearing here as well too. So he's really dominating the local market with his visibility. He's not running an ad campaign for just dentists. He's trying to get specifically people that want implants. So that's number one, is being very specific with what you are actually targeting with your ad campaign. Secondly, though, as well, too, is that, hey, are you in a position, have you built enough of the right foundation for your website to really capitalize on those leads? For example, if you have an old website that's poorly converting, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at your ad visibility, I guarantee you, you're not going to see as high of lead generation come in because your website is old. Or maybe you have some more recent bad reviews about your practice that patients then see that after they see your ad, and then they make a decision, well, maybe I shouldn't go to this practice. And so again, you really have to be in the right opportunistic position to convert those leads efficiently. This is where it's the job of your marketing company to tell you, hey, maybe you should throttle this up, or maybe you should scale this back and we concentrate on some more foundational things before we get too aggressive, and you spend money frivolously without seeing a good ROI from that. So in closing here, guys, I appreciate the time that you've given me here. This is the playbook. This is the formula. Again, when you want to start to drive revenue efficiently, all of these steps matter. They have to be structured in the proper order, okay? And, if your practice, as you're watching this now, we're about to enter into December, New Year's going to be here before you know it. If you're in a position where, hey, I know I need some help with my marketing strategy, I've not been in good communication with my team, I feel like I'm having to sift a lot of information out of my company, we would love to talk to you. Would love to really discuss how we can be a partner in your growth and not be a vendor. And speaking of our partnership, this is what our clients say about us. This is actually a survey report that we had profiled. We need to update this for 2024. With over 1,000 client surveys that we had taken, our clients rate their success experience with us at being a 4.9. Pretty darn good. So we walk the walk and we talk the talk. You have to have great reviews for your practice. We have great reviews from our clients here as well too. I think one of the things that my client had actually said here, the last thing he said, the top one, finally, people offering 1950s service with next year's technology. Warms my heart to hear that. In closing, I also wanted to present, we have put together some great packages here for Orem webinar attendees to help you to understand. We do not charge an upfront cost to build out your website for you. We combine the costs of the website creation, the marketing that we do for you, the KPI, the data tracking, the strategizing calls, all really within one monthly plan. If your practice is not knowing where to start, let's book a consultation. Take out your phone. Again, this link to the left is a link to my schedule. You can book a complimentary consultation with me. We are running these packages through next Wednesday, November 27th. And so don't wait. If you know that you really need some help with your strategy, our packages are very reasonably priced. They're all meant to drive a ton of ROI and good revenue opportunities for you. So again, link on the left is a link to my calendar. You can book a complimentary consultation. If you're not necessarily ready for that right now, but just want to stay in touch with some of the content that I create, follow me on Instagram, and you can do that here as well too. So I know that I'm at my time. Robert, I'm happy to hang around if there's a few questions and answers. My time is certainly yours for the groups here tonight.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll just, the Q&A panel is open. So anyone watching here, if you do want to throw a couple quick questions at Michael, absolutely, we can do that. I'll just say again, Michael, thank you. I mean, like the morning session we did today, incredibly informative. And as someone who, on my side with the Aura marketing team, us creating content for the multiple platforms, responsive, not whatever it may be, it's so time consuming. So that platform that you've built with MyAdvice, I'm honestly just so impressed with that and the time that it saves and the efficiency of everything in the analytics built into the back end. And for everyone watching, I can't overstate how impressive that is. I would say even more so than like a Hootsuite or any of the other ones. Like it's really, it feels like it's a lot more comprehensive and thorough. And I'll ask you the same question that I did earlier today, Michael, and that's how often, should you really be rebuilding your website? Even with, if you went with MyAdvice, like what is your recommendation to stay current and stay on top of the ever-changing Google landscape?
So you guys probably can't see this, but this is my iPhone, and York, my baby from earlier, threw this out of the window last week. So I've got a big crack on my screen. I say this to you because iPhones, they're not sustainable products. They age very quickly. The battery life starts to degrade. Networks improve. The way that we use the internet is constantly changing and evolving. And generally, you need a new iPhone every 2 years to maintain a better user experience. Your website really doesn't function any differently either. We actually have a white paper that we have produced. And for those of you who are interested in that, just, you can drop me a DM on Instagram. I'm happy to send it over to you. But a website really has a 2-year shelf life. That's what we found is its most efficacious period in terms of driving leads and revenue. Beyond that, if you have a website that's older, it's just going to precipitate and drop off in terms of your Google visibility, your lead generation. So you have to look at your website not as being an ever finished product. That's actually a feature of our packaging as well too, is that because there's not an upfront cost, we do a new website every 2 years to refresh the database, refresh the design. So that way, once you hit that 2-year peak, you're not falling off the cliff with your leads, but you're actually continuing to drive and accelerate more of that future growth. So 2 years is really the timeline of when you want to be thinking about redesigning your site. And again, which is another reason why you never should pay anything upfront for it, because it's just going to have to get redesigned very quickly.
Awesome. It looks like you did such a great job of explaining everything in that slide deck that there are no questions this evening. So with that, I will say, Michael, thank you so much for your time, and for everyone watching, thanks for joining us this evening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone, again, and happy holidays to everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good night.